Hi everyone, this is Adam from Recreation Services, and today we're going to be talking about glute training, doing a little booty breakdown, if you will. There's a lot of emphasis on glute training these days, whether it be for sport performance or aesthetics. So today we're going to be talking about the glutes in general, so the major muscles that make up your glutes. We're going to talk about the primary movements of all of those muscles, exercises that you can use to target each of those muscles, and then we're going to spend a little time doing some myth busting surrounding glute training. So your glute muscles as a group are one of the biggest muscle groups in your body, and the biggest of those is the gluteus maximus, which is the big muscle belly, basically the primary one you'll feel through your glutes. It runs laterally, basically from your coccyx and ilium around to your greater trochanter and iliotibial band. It's one of the strongest muscles in the body, and it's made out of a combination of fast twitch and slow twitch muscle fibers. We'll talk about how that affects your training a little later after we talk about some of the other muscle groups. The primary movement for the gluteus maximus is hip extension, so driving your foot straight back. Also responsible for lateral hip rotation, so kind of toeing your foot outwards or rotating your knee to point outwards. It helps a lot with, or works a lot during hip abduction, at least the upper fibers of the gluteus maximus, so that's taking your foot kind of away from your body or lifting your leg away, and the lower fibers of the gluteus maximus will work with hip adduction, so bringing your leg towards your body. It'll also work a little bit in stabilizing the pelvis, specifically during walking or running. So the exercises where you'll get the most muscle activation for your gluteus maximus include deadlifts, hip thrusts, Romanian deadlifts, and squats, but to a slightly lesser extent. So if we first start with gluteus maximus, the next logical step is the glute medius, which is the next biggest muscle. The direction of the muscle fibers in this one run vertically, so you're talking about coming from the ilium down to kind of the anterior aspect of the greater trochanter, which is kind of the big bony aspect on the side of your hip there, on the side of your femur. So movements that the gluteus medius are responsible for, the primary one being hip stability, again during walking, running, stairs, things like that, anything where you're kind of in a single leg stance at some point or single support. And the other primary movements are going to be internal hip rotation, so rotating your toe to face inwards, and hip abduction, so taking your foot away from your body. So exercises that will emphasize your glute medius include monster walks, banded shuffle, clamshells, single leg bridge, or side laying hip abduction. And the glute medius is largely made out of slow twitch muscle fibers because it is more of a stability and endurance based muscle. So we'll talk about how that'll affect your training as well in a little bit. So the smallest of the major glute muscles is the gluteus minimus, which is very similar to the medius, except it starts deeper to the glute medius and a little lower, and then still runs down to kind of the anterior greater trochanter as well. So because it is very similar to the glute medius in terms of direction of the fibers and origins and insertions, all the movements are the same. So again, supporting in hip stability, abduction, so pulling away from the body, and internal hip rotation. So a lot of the exercises you would use to target minimus would be the same as medius, but some other ones you can try are banded squats, so bands around your knees, and a curtsy lunge would be an additional one you could try there. And again, same as the glute medius, glute minimus is largely slow twitch muscle fibers. A bonus muscle, so not really one of the primary muscles, but one that is very important, is the piriformis. So the piriformis is a deeper muscle, but it can be the cause of a lot of issues when tight or weak. So the piriformis sits on top of your sciatic nerve. So sometimes sciatica can be misdiagnosed when the problem is actually piriformis syndrome, where the piriformis is tight and then putting pressure on your sciatic nerve. When your piriformis is putting pressure on your sciatic nerve, it can lead to numbness, tingling, maybe shooting or radiating pain down the leg, as well as a dull kind of aching pain in your hamstrings and glutes or low back. A tight piriformis or piriformis syndrome will make exercises or activities like prolonged standing or walking or stairs very difficult. So what you can do if you are experiencing these issues is lots of stretching of the piriformis, whether it's a figure 4 stretch or a seated twisting stretch or pigeon stretch. Some of those would be good. Otherwise, massage, heat, rolling, any of those can help kind of relieve the tension and tightness in your piriformis. So I want to finish by talking about some of the myths surrounding glute training. One of them being that you have to lift heavy and you can only do it once a week. When I mentioned the fiber makeup of the glutes being a combination of both for the Glute Max and largely slow twitch muscle fibers for the Glute Medius and Minimus. Because there is a combination of muscle fibers, especially in the Glute Max, it means that heavy and light, kind of higher rep training is beneficial for your glutes. So because the Glute Max has both muscle fibers, both heavy, low rep training and high volume, low weight training is good for the Glute Max. And the Glute Medius and Minimus, being more stability, kind of endurance muscles, respond really well to volume as well. So you can do a lot more repetition with lower weight for that kind of training. And the glutes are very, very strong. So they can handle a lot in terms of volume. So you don't really have to worry about, you know, giving them a week off and stuff like that. And playing off the frequency and intensity of glute training, the no pain, no gain. So if I don't have DOMs in my glutes, I didn't do enough work, which isn't necessarily true. The glutes, like I mentioned, are very, very strong and they can handle a lot. So you might not necessarily feel DOMs through your glutes, but it doesn't mean you didn't do anything. So during your exercise, as long as you feel a burn and fatigue during your exercises, you've done enough work. So you don't necessarily have to feel tightness and delayed muscle soreness as an indicator that you've done enough work. The last myth I want to talk about is more about the shaping of the glutes. There's a lot of emphasis these days on the under butt, which is basically just kind of like the cleavage at the bottom of the butt, or totally reshaping your butt. There is a big genetic component to your glutes in terms of how much fast twitch muscle fibers you have versus slow twitch muscle fibers, where you store fat around your glutes, and just overall shape of your hips, being like width or what have you. Well, training your glutes can change the shape a little bit in terms of, you know, building the muscle. You can maybe fill out a little bit on the sides, emphasizing glute medius and stuff. You can't totally reshape your glutes. So everyone stores fat differently and everyone builds muscle differently. So you can't, you know, target fat loss in a spot and build muscle in a spot. So when they talk about building muscle in your underbutt, that's misleading. Your underbutt is just part of your glute max and a little bit of fat storage. So if you don't have much fat storage there, then you're not gonna build fat there or tone down and build your glute max. There's some clips out there that show glute minimus being the bottom part of your glutes, and that's just wrong. Your glute minimus, like I talked about, is very superior and deep to your glutes. That's not factual as well. So there's a lot of misinformation about how much misshaping you can do and how you can target aspects of your glutes. There are ways to target the muscles I talked about, but like I mentioned, your overall shape is still going to be somewhat limited based on your genetics. So some people will have it and some people won't, and that's just the way it is. So I hope that helps. Feel free to try out some of these exercises, work them into your workouts, and again, like I said, you can do them multiple times a week if you want, and good luck.